So what is the death of PC gaming going to look like? Because we're obviously in this phase where PC gaming just isn't competitive, it's not relevant. Like there are no new PC exclusives being developed. Everything is launching on console and doing better on console. The whole PC cope, like we have more games than everyone else. It's like you're swimming in a sea of land whales while Nintendo gamers are like hanging out with like chill, awesome models, okay? Like supermodels, like PC gaming supposedly having more games is laughably stupid and wrong and really should be called out for what it is. Like it is just a giant cope. You're the guys who are hyping up Pow World and think it's going to destroy Nintendo, and you're going to be very, very blindsided. You have been very, very blindsided by the success of like modern Pokemon products. Okay, like it is shocking what we've seen happen over the past like several years. How Nintendo keeps like hitting it out of the park with all their games, having all these success stories, all these great console launches, all these great new franchises, and like PC gamers are seriously trying to sit there and gaslight you into thinking Terraria is bigger than Super Mario Bros. It's like it's so utterly delusional and out of pocket. I'm very, very interested in how this is going to end, and I do think it's going to be like, okay, so these guys are all in their 30s and 40s, right? They're all old fucks, like disgusting fat blobs with VTuber avatars who are trying to make themselves seem like they're the majority. But in actuality, when you look at the real world, where you look at where things are going, a lot of the franchises that PC gamers hype up, whether it's WoW, whether it's Ultima, whether it's, whatever else, like all of it are just completely irrelevant shells of what they were. Even like tentpole IPs like Dragon Quest are kind of obscure in Japan now. If you go up to a Japanese child and ask them, what games you playing, bro? Like, they'll tell you Pokemon, Like, Dragon Quest was the iconic defining JRPG brand back in the 80s and 90s, but it has since been supplemented by Pokemon. Pokemon's bigger than it is. It's a multimedia brand. Everyone knows it. And as a result of that, it is bringing more and more people into like under the Nintendo umbrella, into the Nintendo console sphere. Like, and PC simply doesn't have that equivalent. You basically have streamers who scream at people over like how evil Nintendo is, but the people who like consume that that content are older, they're out of touch, they're delusional, and so they have this mindset that like Nintendo bad, they censor games, they don't release anything, like let's ignore like Super Mario Bros. Wonder meetup in Bella Bell Park, let's ignore Pokepia, let's ignore Resident Evil 9, let's ignore Tales of Berseria on Nintendo Switch 2, let's ignore Mario Tennis, none of that matters, none of that counts as a real game. And then they get like blindsided when like Nintendo Switch 2 like sells record numbers, and then they have to come out and try and tell people that like, well, actually, PS5 sold more. Like again, they're desperate to try and keep the illusion going. They are desperate to try and keep the discussion around Nintendo negative, because without that, it becomes overwhelmingly like clear to everyone that Nintendo is dominating the competition in like every genre, on every console, like in every avenue. Like Nintendo is dominating them, and it's going to be very interesting, like seeing like the industry try and rally to pretend that like non-Nintendo video game adaptations are better than like the Nintendo ones. Like already, like when the Mario movie came out and it was great, you saw people like people like Angry Joe try and crawl out of the woodwork and say like Sonic was better, Monster Hunter was better. Like they were desperate to try and push the narrative, but the reality of it is like PC just does not have an equivalent for what Nintendo does. And no, like pirating Nintendo games and playing them on your PC is not an equivalent. Even if they're brand new games, okay? Like the reality is Nintendo's still making money off those games you pirate. There are plenty of people that are not pirating, more people all the time actually, who are vehemently anti-piracy. Like and right now the Switch 2 isn't emulatable anyway. So the entire like hope that people have that Nintendo can't compete, that they have no games, it's just a giant bubble that will burst really suddenly and really sharply. You know what I mean? Like, you know, these guys are the guys who like hyped up FNAF because of like game theory videos and like Markiplier screaming at it, you know. When you get it down to brass tacks, like the game itself is not popular. Like people do not give a fuck about FNAF or its lore. Like they care about the YouTubers. They care about the people shilling this stuff. They care about the weird like side thing that has nothing to do with like the actual product. Like Nintendo doesn't have that problem. And that's the issue that I think like PC gamers are going to have in the future, is that like so much of their material relies on just like weird fringe internet things that have nothing to do with the actual product. Like whether it's like fan art or like Rule 34 or modding games or pirating games. Like essentially we're in this position now where Nintendo is dominating in the actual video game front, while the online gaming community is desperately trying to like push this narrative that like, well, actually what we're interested in is YouTubers doing lore videos, you know, like Dark Souls, right? Like Dark Souls has a terrible lore, it has a terrible story, you know, like none of the characters are interesting, they're all boring, it's all vague, like none of it makes any sense, but like Vadi Vidya is like making fan fiction videos, like giving his version of the plot, like, and, you know, suddenly it becomes deep and profound, but it doesn't have anything to do with the actual game. Like, that's the reality of what we're seeing with the PC Master Race, is that what you have is a bunch of delusional people who genuinely believe that PC is, like, relevant, that people are playing on PC, that people care about PC, when in actuality, all they're doing at most is playing ports of decade-old console games. Okay? Like, that is the PC market at this point. Like, honestly, I think PC's been dead since, like, 2000. Because that's when, like, all the PC exclusive ports, the PC exclusive games started drying up. And companies started producing more for PlayStation and Xbox. Because there simply isn't that much of a market for video games on PC. Like, when you actually look at the numbers, when you look at what people are playing on PC, what you get is, like, a bunch of slop that is basically only being supported by people who just refuse to buy consoles. You know, the console is a better experience. It's more intuitive. It's less expensive. Like, it has better games. You know, plenty of games are not available on PC. Like, so when you take that into consideration, when you look at what they're doing, like, you just can't take these people seriously. Like, the reason they obsess over Nintendo so much is that they know deep in their soul that they cannot compete with what they're doing.